You don't have to do a thing to make it happen. What's going on, everybody? It's Noah, and in today's episode of The Rise Method, I want to talk to you about how it is being that creates doing, that creates having. So when I say you do not have to do a thing to make it happen, what I mean is that you need only be the person, which then does or does not do particular behaviors to then have those traits, those qualities, those characteristics, those conditions, those people they desire in their life. You do not have to act. It sounds very paradoxical. Yes, action is involved, but you do not have to act. That is not the primary mode by which this change comes about. It comes about when you alter your state of being. That is first and foremost, because being creates doing, creates having. So when you conceptualize a goal for yourself and you imagine what it would be like, the person that you would be to have already attained that goal, what are the beliefs that they harbor about themselves, about what they're capable of, about life, about love, whatever that goal is for you? What are the beliefs they hold about themselves in the world? And in accordance with that, what thoughts are they thinking? What do they feel on a regular basis? How do they handle adversity? You have to get clear on the end state. You have to curate and clarify your imagination, because that is your North Star, whereby when you're aligned with that end state, all you have to do is surrender the old ways of being to the new way of being. I like how the sun came out when I just said that. Surrendering the old way of being to the new way of being. And just simply acting from that place. Because again, it's not the action that creates the thing. It's the place from which the action comes, or the place from which the non-action comes. It's who you're being, because who you're being creates what you're doing, and then that creates what you're having. So this is also the idea of rest. This is what it is meant when we talk about resting, spiritual rest. Resting in the state of the wish fulfilled, as Neville Goddard spoke about. Resting in the state sought. Because think about the term rest. When you're resting, you don't have to do anything to sleep. In fact, the more you try to fall asleep, the harder it is to do so. So what do you have to do? You have to just let it happen. You have to allow yourself to sleep, to rest, to be that version of yourself. Now, because when you do that, when you allow yourself to simply be that version of yourself that takes consistent action, that's disciplined, that's steadfast, that's perseverant amidst trials, but is relaxed and calm and confident while doing so, that is what actually creates the end result, instead of perpetuating more conditions that then facilitate more states of fear or worry or anxiety, because it's always the place from which you're creating that actually creates the result. Now, I do want to acknowledge here, because this is important, that when you're going about surrendering to that ideal state, surrendering the old self to the new self and taking action, that isn't to say that there won't come conditions, there won't come circumstances that challenge that newfound state. Of course they will. Because everything that's currently manifesting in your life is a result of who you have been up to this point. And you have to notice it like that. You have to reframe it like that. Okay, and utilize the external in such a way that it's either A, confirming the shift that you've made, So noticing, no matter how big or how small, noticing external confirmation of how you are more loving or how you're more prosperous or abundant, how you're more successful. You use it for confirmation, or you use the external as a teacher. Okay? I'm namely speaking to those trials or those challenges. They're tests, teaching. They're teaching you how to shift exactly from the inside. Okay, this is the premise of psycho-cybernetics. When Maxwell Maltz describes the failure acronym, these failure associated states. And the point of those is to help reorient you back on course toward your goals, to the ideal way of being. And this is also why the RISE method is, I consider it a cyclical process. It's not just a one and done deal, but rather a continual process of refining the vision. Because what happens? You recognize limiting beliefs, you realize them, you detach from them, make space, and start to create clarity on the imagination, the imagined goal, on the new way of being, surrender to that new way of being, and then embody that. Go about taking action in the greatest alignment with how the version of yourself that has already attained the goal would act, would show up on a regular basis, who they would be, what they would be thinking, what they would be feeling. And then what happens is we're going along that path, and we experience resistance, or we experience trial. It's a cyclical, ever-occurring process of refining, purifying the mind to ultimately attain that which you desire. It's a continual optimization process. And so enjoying the process as much as the destination can allow you to experience more of that flow, more of that ease, more of that joy. Experiencing more of that joy. And joy is something that you can experience, you can have, regardless of whether or not you're happy. Okay, whether you're feeling good, you can still live from a place of joy. Because you know what's in store for you, you know that there's a higher power working for your highest good, and you know the laws of consciousness. You know the power that your mind holds in shaping your reality. So you work that muscle of mindfulness when the external starts to challenge or test. It's trying to teach you how to shift. Use that mindfulness. Oh yeah, I am showing up here overwhelmed and trying to do 100 things at once. How would the ideal version of myself act? How would the version of myself who's calm, who's successful, and yet very productive, how would they be thinking? How would they be feeling right now? And once you recognize that, you surrender to it. And so it is. That's just a simple release. And then go about taking action. Go about doing or not doing. Because not doing can be just as powerful as doing sometimes. But it's just remembering that it isn't the action in and of itself that's going to bring about the result you desire. It's the awareness of being. Even in those times when you're not necessarily feeling ideal, the awareness of those times and being able to recognize that there is a greater good that is coming into realization. And even though I'm not feeling ideal right now, I can accept that and still maintain calm, clear-headed focus, have a calm confidence. That provides you with a foundation of joy that you can continue living by. Because I would argue to say that sadness, pain, anger, all of these failure, quote unquote, states that Maxwell Maltz talks about in psycho-cybernetics, I would venture to say that we would never want to fully expel that, because you can't experience good without having experienced bad. No light without dark. No yin without yang. No day without night. No high without low. It's as simple as that. So it isn't that you revel in those times of sadness or grief, but you embrace them and accept them because they confer and they allow for an even greater experience of what's to come. So that's the thing about being a human, is that we are these paradoxical creatures. We have two elements within us, ultimately contained in one system, right? We're spiritual as well as material beings. We have the light as well as the dark. That's what the shadow is. And the goal of this work and the alchemical work, the inner alchemy that you're performing when you're doing this, when you're abiding by the rise method, it is a continual process of making the darkness conscious, making the unconscious conscious, as Carl Jung said. And until one makes the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So this is a process of alchemizing fate into free will. And both are true. We're not here to get into a philosophical debate of which are true. Both are real. Both are real. Just like the yin and the yang are both true and real. The internal and external are both real. But it's how you relate to them. It's how you frame them that ultimately influence whether or not it's a continual one step forward, two step back approach, or whether it's a one step forward. And then as you're feeling that two steps back, it teaches you and it reminds you to step forward. Does that make sense? Leave a comment. Let me know if that made sense. Because that reminds me of the Hermetic principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. As within, so without. As without, so within. So they're both real, and you want to use both to your advantage. Create from the inside out, but then use the outside in to confirm the shift that you've made, or to teach you how to shift. And it's teaching you and it's helping you to get back into alignment with the ideal, to get in resonance with that end state, that ideal end state. All of that comes from a shift of who you are being. It all begins with a decision. It begins with a simple decision. All transformation begins with a simple decision. A decision to stop being a victim of circumstances, a decision to stop living in perpetual fear and anxiety, a decision to take control of your finances, of your relationships, and to actually provide, protect for your family, to become more intimate with your partner, to have deeper relationships as a whole, to be more successful in your business because you're tired, you're sick and tired of experiencing continual letdown and setback and frustration and overwhelm again and again and again. And again, that's where the darkness actually helps the light. It brings about more light. When you make the darkness conscious, when you acknowledge it and accept that it's there and utilize it and integrate it. That's when you become whole, and from that place of wholeness, you can create the life you truly desire. And the paradoxical thing about that is that you are whole right now. Because all change and all of reality is always happening now. There's no past, there's no future. That is never experienced, I was told in when I was younger, growing up, by my pastor in church, said that, a lot of people have anxiety of the future because God's never there with you. It's like, wow, that always resonated with me. And that's because God, your higher self, the infinite intelligence of life, source, whatever name you want to give that, it has no experience of past, present, future. This linear timeline. It experiences everything happening now. I really recommend you check out the book Power versus Force, where David Hawkins talks about that, explains that. That we have this causal experience, A causes B causes C, whereas God, your higher self, infinite intelligence, that end version of yourself, it experiences and sees all of that happening at one time. It's all part of the process. It's all leading to the same experience. So you make the shift now. You are whole now, and that brings about the change. And you don't need to do anything to make that happen. Make a decision. You be that person. It's a decision of being that elicits all the transformation and inspires and informs the action that you do or do not take going forward. So thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're still here with me, thank you so much. Be sure to check out the links below for additional resources. There's a free Rise guide. We can go through these steps of recognition, imagination, surrender, embodiment with some simple exercises, awareness building exercises to help you in your growth journey. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time, let's rise.